At 6:13 in the morning, my best friend stood barefoot in my kitchen wearing my old gray hoodie, holding my coffee mug in both hands and asked, "Do you always talk to women like you're in love with them when you think they're asleep?" My hand froze halfway through pouring coffee. My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 32 years old, I teach 8th grade history in Portland, Oregon, and I've spent years building a quiet, predictable life around one rule: never say things you can't take back. Especially not to women who matter, especially not to Sophie Hart. Sophie was 30, a freelance graphic designer with a laugh that made strangers turn around, and she'd been my best friend for 4 years. The kind of friend who knew my takeout order, kept a spare key to my apartment, and once sat on my floor for hours helping me sort through boxes after my engagement fell apart. She was also the reason I hadn't slept more than 2 hours that night. The evening before, we'd gone to a birthday party for our friend Rachel at a crowded bar downtown. Sophie didn't usually drink much, but Rachel kept refilling her glass and Sophie kept saying, "It's fine, Ethan." I'm celebrating being emotionally well-adjusted. By 11:30, she was leaning her shoulder into mine in the booth like she'd forgotten where her own balance lived. "You're very handsome tonight," she told me. "You're very drunk tonight. Both things can be true." I laughed because the table was laughing, but she didn't look away. Her eyes stayed on my face, soft and unfocused, her fingers brushing my sleeve like she was checking whether I was real. That was the trouble with Sophie, even joking, she sometimes found the one place in me I kept covered. When the party got too loud, I told her I was taking her home. She argued for about 8 seconds, then rested her forehead on my shoulder. "Okay, but don't use your responsible voice, it makes me want to behave." I should have driven straight to her building. That was the plan, but when we got there, she dug through her purse 3 times and came up with lip balm, a receipt, one earring, and no keys. Her roommate was out of town. "I'm a capable adult," she announced, staring at the locked door. "You are? I have misplaced evidence." "You have." She looked embarrassed then, the humor draining off her face. "I'm sorry," something in her voice made the decision for me. "My place is 10 minutes away," I said. "You take the bed, I'll take the couch." She nodded but didn't move right away. In the car she went quiet, streetlights sliding over her face, bright then shadowed. At a red light she turned toward me. "Ethan. Do you ever get tired of being careful with me?" My hands tightened on the wheel. "You're drunk, Soph, that's not an answer." "No," I said quietly. "It's not," she smiled like she'd won something and closed her eyes. At my apartment I gave her water, aspirin, and sweatpants, and left my hoodie on the bathroom counter because she was shivering in the thin green dress she'd worn to the party. "Change if you want." "I'll be in the kitchen," I said, eyes on the hallway wall. "You're such a gentleman," she called through the door. "I try." "No, you hide behind it." That landed harder than it should have. A minute later she came out wearing my sweatpants and my hoodie, sleeves swallowing her hands, hair loose around her shoulders. She looked smaller in my clothes but never helpless. Sophie never looked helpless. She looked like a woman who'd wandered close to a truth and was deciding whether to touch it. She caught me staring. "What? Nothing? You always say that when it's not nothing." I turned to pull back the comforter. "You need sleep." She sat on the edge of the mattress, watching me like she was memorizing my restraint. When I straightened, she caught my wrist, not hard, just enough. "Stay until I fall asleep." Every sensible part of me said no. Her thumb moved once against my pulse, and I sat down in the chair beside the bed anyway. She lay down, still holding onto my wrist like an anchor. Minutes passed, her breathing slowed. Then, so quiet I almost missed it, she murmured, "You never let anything happen." I thought she was asleep. That was my first mistake. I looked at her face, relaxed against my pillow, and I said the thing I had no right to say. "Because if something happened with you, Sophie, I wouldn't survive pretending it didn't matter." Her fingers loosened around my wrist. I didn't breathe properly until I was sure she was out. Then I went to the couch and stared at the ceiling all night, feeling like I'd crossed a line even though I hadn't touched her. And now she was standing in my kitchen wearing my hoodie, looking far too sober. "How much do you remember?" I asked. She took a sip from my mug, the chipped one that says "World's Okayest Teacher." "Enough, that's vague. It's kinder than the truth." I leaned against the counter, trying to read her face. The teasing had drained away, leaving something quieter, something that made the kitchen feel too small. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable," I said. Her eyes flicked to the hoodie sleeves wrapped around her hands. "You didn't." "Then what are we doing?" She looked up, and for the first time in 4 years, Sophie didn't answer like my best friend. She stepped closer, set the mug down, and said, "I'm trying to figure out if you only said it because you thought I'd never hear it. But what happened next completely changed everything I thought I understood about the last 4 years." Sophie, I said. She gave a small, humorless laugh. That tone, what tone? The one you use right before you convince both of us not to want something. I opened my mouth, then closed it because she was right. I had a talent for making restraint sound noble. I could dress fear up as manners, call distance respect, silence patience, loneliness maturity. I'd been doing it for years. But it was different with Sophie. She wasn't a date I'd lose after dinner. She was my emergency contact, my movie night argument partner, the person who showed up at my classroom with cupcakes after a parent yelled at me so badly I nearly quit teaching. If I ruined this, I didn't just lose a possibility, I lost her. You were drunk, I said carefully. I was drunk when I asked if you got tired of being careful with me. I was not drunk this morning. That doesn't change last night. No, but it changes now. The clock ticked too loudly. I dragged both hands down my face. I shouldn't have said that while you were sleeping. I wasn't sleeping. I didn't know that. I know, she said softly. That's why it meant something. That hit me square in the chest. I looked away first, because apparently I was still a coward before 7 in the morning. She leaned against the opposite counter, wrapping both hands around the mug again. Do you remember when I broke up with Cody? Unfortunately, he called you my emotional boyfriend. He also wore loafers without socks in January. I didn't value his judgment, she smiled a little. I laughed when he said it, told him you were my best friend and he was insecure. Her smile faded. He was insecure, he also wasn't completely wrong. I went still. Sophie stared into her coffee like it might give her instructions. I didn't know what to do with how easy you were, how safe, how you'd walk me to my car but never make it feel like a move. How you remembered the tiny stuff, how you never asked for more. Because you were with someone. After Cody, I had no answer. After Cody, I had helped her repaint her studio. I had taken her to dinner the night her biggest client backed out. I had sat beside her at Rachel's wedding, while she cried quietly during the father-daughter dance because her own father hadn't called in 6 months. And I had gone home alone every single time, reminding myself that friendship wasn't a waiting room. I thought you didn't see me that way, she said. I laughed once because the alternative was making a sound I couldn't live with. Sophie, that has never been the problem. The words hung there. A slow, startled blush rose in her cheeks, like she hadn't expected me to finally stop protecting her from the truth. Then what is the problem? You know what the problem is. I know what you think the problem is. I pushed off the counter, needing to move but having nowhere to go. If we cross this line and it goes badly, there's no clean way back. Maybe not, doesn't that scare you? Of course it scares me. Her voice cracked on the last word and it changed everything. I woke up in your bed wearing your hoodie, remembering you say you wouldn't survive pretending I didn't matter. And my first thought wasn't, oh no, it was finally. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe, finally. I had imagined versions of this conversation for years, usually late at night, usually when her name lit up my phone and I waited 3 seconds too long to answer. In none of those imagined versions did she look at me just as terrified as I felt. Sophie, I said again, and this time her name came out broken. She crossed the kitchen, not fast, not dramatic, just 3 quiet steps, until I could smell my own laundry soap on her skin and the faint sweetness of champagne still in her hair. Tell me to stop, she whispered. Tell me this is a mistake, tell me you don't want me. I should have said something responsible. Instead I said, I can't, her breath caught. Then my phone rang, ripping through the kitchen like an alarm. We both flinched. Rachel's name lit up the screen. Sophie laughed under her breath, dazed. Of course. I let it ring. You're not answering, she asked. No, Ethan Cole ignoring a call. Is this the apocalypse? Possibly. The phone went quiet. The moment shifted, didn't vanish. Then a text buzzed through. Rachel, is Sophie with you? She's not answering. Please tell me she didn't go home with that guy in the leather jacket. Sophie groaned. Oh my God. I typed back, she's safe with me. Lost her keys sleeping it off. Sophie raised an eyebrow. Sleeping? Trying to, I corrected and hit send. Rachel's reply came instantly. Thank God, wait with you. Then seconds later, Ethan. Should I be excited or concerned? Sophie read over my shoulder and made a strangled noise. Do not answer that. Too late. Another buzz, then another. Sophie covered her face. She's going to call everyone, probably. In about 12 minutes, our entire friend group will think we slept together. We didn't. No, we didn't, she repeated, and the way she said it made the room warm again. You should probably shower, I said. I can drive you home when your roommate gets back. She studied me. Is that what you want? No, but fear, loyal as ever, answered first. I want you to have a clear head. Something flashed across her face, hurt maybe. She nodded. Right, clear head. She walked toward the hallway, then paused at the doorway without turning around. For the record, I've had a clear head about you for longer than you think. Then she disappeared into my bedroom, still wearing my hoodie. And for the first time all morning, I understood I wasn't the only one who'd been pretending. The shower turned on. I stood in the kitchen feeling like I'd just been handed a map in a language I should have learned years ago. Clear head. I'd said it like her feelings were a side effect of champagne and proximity, as if mine weren't 4 years deep, rooted in every ordinary Tuesday we'd ever shared. By the time she came back out, she was in her green dress again, my hoodie thrown over it, damp hair combed back with her fingers. "Your shower pressure is tragic," she said. "Good morning to you too, and your shampoo smells like a lumberjack went to therapy. Cedar is calming, it's aggressive." There it was, our rhythm, the familiar bridge. We both stepped onto it with relief, pretending not to notice the river underneath. She sat at the table, picking at nothing, touching the hoodie sleeve like she'd forgotten she still had it on. At 8:30 her roommate Priya called. Sophie put her on speaker. "Priya, I lost my keys." "No, yes, again, where are you?" "Ethan's." A pause loud enough to need furniture. "Oh, don't know, did something happen?" Sophie looked at me. I stared at my toaster like it held legal counsel. "No," she said, "and also maybe," Priya gasped. "Nothing happened," Sophie clarified quickly. "I was drunk, he was annoyingly decent, I slept in his bed alone." "He slept on the couch." "Ethan did? Why does everyone sound surprised?" "Because he looks at you like a Victorian widower, babe." Sophie's mouth fell open. I turned to the sink and coughed. "Priya," she hissed, "what? I thought we all knew." "We do not all know. I know Rachel knows. Jordan knows but pretends not to because he thinks Ethan will panic and join a monastery." I'm hanging up. "Wait, I'm 10 minutes away." The call ended. Neither of us spoke. "Victorian widower," I finally said. "I wouldn't focus on that. What should I focus on? The fact that apparently everyone knew except us." "I knew," I said. "I knew how I felt. You never asked. I didn't think I had the right." "That's not the same thing." "No, it wasn't." The room felt different now, not charged, not one breath from a kiss. This was worse, honest. The kind of conversation where one wrong sentence could become a scar. "I was engaged when we met," I said. Her expression shifted. She knew pieces of it, not all. "You were kind to me when everything fell apart. You didn't make me feel pathetic, like a failed man with a ring in a drawer and no future. And somewhere in all that, you became the first good thing I didn't want to ruin, so I made rules. I told myself loving you quietly was better than losing you loudly." Her eyes shone. "That is the saddest romantic thing anyone has ever said to me." I laughed, rough and unwilling. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." She stood slowly. "But don't make rules for both of us without telling me." A knock at the door saved me or doomed me. I still don't know which. Priya burst in with sunglasses and a spare key. Before anyone yells, I bring salvation. Her eyes bounced from Sophie's damp hair to my hoodie to my face. Oh my God. "The energy in here is disgusting. Priya, it's like walking into a movie where both leads have anxiety. I will change the locks." "You need keys to do that." Despite myself, I laughed. Priya handed over the spare. "Rachel's texted me 17 times. Official story, you lost your keys. Ethan was a saint." "That's the true story," I said. Priya peered over her sunglasses. "Is it the whole story?" Sophie answered before I could. "No." Priya's eyebrows shot up, but for once she read the room. "Cool. I'll wait downstairs and pretend I have boundaries." When she left, the apartment felt too quiet. Sophie held her keys in one hand, tugged at the hem of my hoodie with the other. "I should go." "Yeah." Neither of us moved. Then she took the hoodie off. The green dress underneath was wrinkled from sleep, her skin still flushed from the shower. She folded the hoodie badly and held it out. I didn't take it. "Keep it." Her fingers tightened around the fabric. "Ethan, not as a symbol, you just get cold." A small smile broke through. "You're terrible at not making things symbols." "I'm learning." She hugged the hoodie to her chest. "I'm going home. Going to drink water, find my dignity, and maybe die for 3 hours. Reasonable plan. And tonight," she said, "you're coming over." My heart kicked once. "Am I?" "Yes, 7 o'clock. We're going to talk, no alcohol, no group texts, no emergency exits, and no responsible voice. And if talking changes things," she stepped close enough to touch my arm but didn't. "Then we let them change." She left before I could answer. From the window, I watched her climb into Priya's car, my hoodie bundled in her lap. My phone buzzed. "Rachel, so?" I looked at the closed door, the empty mug, the bedroom down the hall where I'd accidentally told the truth. For once, I didn't hide. "I think I'm in trouble," I typed back. If I had known what was waiting for me that evening, I would have shown up a lot sooner. At 6:42 that night, I stood outside Sophie's apartment holding takeout Thai food, sparkling water, and the emotional stability of a paper lantern in a storm. I'd changed shirts 3 times before realizing she'd already seen me with the flu. covered in chalk dust, and crying into a slice of pizza after my engagement ended. Pretending I had any mystery left was pointless. She opened the door in leggings, bare feet, and my hoodie. My brain went blank. I was cold, she said, catching me staring, and hungover. And maybe I wanted to see what you do. I brought noodles. Bold response. It's all I have. Come in, Victorian widower. I'm never surviving that nickname. Am I? Not a chance. Her apartment was exactly Sophie, plants in mismatched pots, design prints leaning against the walls, a bright yellow couch nobody but her could make look intentional. Priya was out, under strict instructions not to return unless there was blood, fire, or an eggplant emoji, which apparently meant emotional crisis. We ate on the floor because chairs felt too formal for a conversation that might change everything. For a while we talked around it, the party, her lost keys, my tragic shower pressure, the leather jacket guy who'd apparently spent 20 minutes explaining cryptocurrency to a houseplant. Then the silence arrived. She set her chopsticks down. Okay, no responsible voice, and no deciding what I can handle. That one was fair. Okay, how long? She asked. I didn't pretend not to understand. Since your studio open house, 3 years ago, you wore red shoes. One of your prints fell off the wall and you laughed before anyone else could. I remember thinking, say it. I remember thinking I wanted to be the person you looked for when something went wrong. Her eyes softened. You already were. Yeah. That's what scared me. She looked away, blinking fast. I kept going. If I stopped now, I'd rebuild the wall brick by brick before morning. I didn't want to turn friendship into a debt, like because I showed up for you, you owed me feelings. I've seen men do that. Act patient while they're really keeping score. I didn't want to be that guy. I also didn't want to be the guy who couldn't be your friend just because you didn't love him back. She went still at the word love. So did you love me? She asked. Every safe answer came to me. I ignored them all. Yes, she inhaled shakily. I'm not saying that to pressure you, I added quickly. Ethan, she moved the takeout containers aside, clearing the space between us, then shifted closer until her knee touched mine. I don't know when it started for me. It wasn't one moment. It was 100 stupid little ones. You fixing my sink while grumbling about my useless landlord. You saving me the corner brownie because you know I like edges. You letting me rant about clients, then asking the one question that made me realize I was actually upset about my dad. Her hand found mine on the rug. I dated other people because I figured if you wanted me, you'd have said something. I almost did. At Rachel's wedding, you were crying. I wanted to hold your hand not just as comfort. And I thought if I touch her now, I'll give myself away. Her fingers tightened around mine. I wanted you too. The room tilted. All this time, I said. All this time, she echoed, and the laugh that escaped her was small and broken. Mine matched it. Then she leaned forward and rested her forehead against my shoulder. I froze for half a second before my arms went around her. It was just a hug, except it wasn't. She fit against me with the terrible familiarity of someone I already knew how to hold. Sophie, I whispered. She lifted her head, her face inches from mine. No champagne this time, no excuse. Tell me no, she said, barely audible. I looked at her mouth. I'm done lying. Then I kissed her. For 1 second she didn't move and terror split through me. Then her hand slid up my chest, curled into my shirt, and she kissed me back like she was angry at every year we'd wasted. My knee hit the coffee table, a carton of noodles tipped over, and we both laughed under our breath. Sorry, I muttered against her mouth. Shut up, she whispered and kissed me again. I had been engaged before. I knew desire, the heat, the rush. This was different. This had history in it, every unsent text, every swallowed confession, every goodbye at her door that lasted too long. When we finally pulled apart, her eyes were bright. Well, yeah, I'm scared, she said. Me too. Good, if you'd said you weren't, I'd think you hadn't understood the assignment. I covered her hand with mine. What happens now? Her phone lit up before she could answer. Priya, do I come home or keep wandering Target like a divorced ghost? Sophie snorted, typed back one-handed. Keep wandering. 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Oh my God, Priya wrote. Sophie dropped the phone and buried her flaming face in my chest. I was still laughing when my own phone buzzed. Rachel, why did Priya just text me? The hoodie has landed. We need new friends, Sophie groaned. My smile faded when another message appeared beneath Rachel's. Vanessa, my ex-fiancé. Hi Ethan, I know this is out of nowhere, but I'm in town. Can we talk? Sophie felt me go still and lifted her head. What is it? I stared at the name glowing on the screen, the past arriving exactly when the future had finally opened its door. I showed her the message. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Do you want to answer? Sophie asked. No, the answer came faster than I expected. No, I spent a long time thinking closure was something Vanessa had to hand me. I looked down at the phone. I think I already got it. Her fingers relaxed slightly. When, about 5 minutes ago, her eyes filled but she smiled. That is a dangerously good answer. It's also true, I typed before I could overthink it. Hi Vanessa, I hope you're well. I don't think meeting is a good idea. Take care, I hit send, then turned the phone off completely. Sophie stared at me. Ethan Cole, phone off, emotional boundaries, kissing on the floor. Who are you? Possibly a man having a breakthrough. Hot, I laughed, and the sound loosened the last knot in my chest, but she didn't let me hide in the joke. She took both my hands. I need to say something. I'm not Vanessa, and I'm not going to punish you for wanting me, but you can't love me like you're apologizing for it. If we do this, I need all of you, not the version who stands at the door with one foot already outside because he's afraid I'll leave. I looked at our hands, at her thumbs brushing my knuckles. You're asking me to be brave. I'm asking us both. That was the moment I understood love wasn't the confession in the dark, and it wasn't the kiss either. It was this Sophie sitting in front of me, wearing my hoodie, asking me not for perfection but for presence, so I nodded. I'll try. And when I panic, I'll tell you instead of turning into a tragic widower. Her smile trembled. That's all I want. I leaned forward and kissed her again, softer this time, not a question. Not an accident, a promise beginning to learn its own shape. We didn't figure everything out that night. Priya came home eventually with a Target bag full of snacks and the smug expression of someone who'd known all along. Rachel called at midnight and screamed so loud Sophie had to hold the phone away from her ear. Jordan sent one text, finally, with a monk emoji. Vanessa never replied, and somehow that silence felt like mercy. The weeks that followed were strange and beautiful and occasionally awkward. We had to learn how to date inside a friendship that already knew too much. The first time I held Sophie's hand in public, Rachel applauded from across the restaurant. The first time she kissed me goodbye outside my apartment, I forgot my own door code. We fought too. Once I canceled dinner because work had drained me and I didn't want her to see me low. She showed up anyway, furious, carrying soup. You don't get to disappear just because you're sad, she told me, so I let her in. Another time she got scared after a client moved away and convinced herself everything good was temporary. I found her on her studio floor surrounded by rejected sketches, wearing my hoodie like armor. I'm here, I said. I know, she whispered. That's what scares me. So I sat beside her until being scared wasn't the only thing in the room. 6 months later, she officially stole the hoodie. I stopped pretending I expected it back. By the following spring, she had a drawer at my place. I had a favorite mug at hers, and my students started asking why I smiled at my phone like a man in a soup commercial. Sophie even designed new posters for my classroom, including one of George Washington in sunglasses that my principal hated and every student loved. A year after that morning, we went to Rachel's birthday again, same bar, same crowded booth, same terrible lighting. This time Sophie had one glass of champagne and stopped. Near midnight she leaned into my shoulder, sober and warm, fingers laced through mine under the table. Do you ever get tired of being careful with me? She asked. I turned and kissed her temple. Yes, so I stopped. She smiled like that was exactly the answer she'd been waiting for. We walked home instead of calling a cab. The city was quiet, the sidewalk shining from earlier rain. Sophie wore my hoodie under her coat, the hood peeking out at the back of her neck. At my apartment door she paused, reached into her pocket and pulled out a key. Not mine, hers. She placed it in my palm beside my own. I don't want to lose evidence anymore, she said. I closed my fingers around both keys and pulled her into me. The hallway light flickered overhead. Somewhere downstairs a dog barked. Sophie laughed softly into my chest, and I just held her there, wrapped in my hoodie and my arms, no longer asleep, no longer pretending, no longer careful with the truth. So here's my question for you. What would you have done if you got your drunk best friend home safe, woke up the next morning to find her wearing your hoodie, and realized she'd heard the confession you thought you were only whispering to yourself? Has anything like this ever happened to you? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Where are you watching this from? Drop it below. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoyed this one, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you in the next story.